Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Concern Podcast, where we unpack political, social, economic, and cultural stories shaping our world. I am Emmanuel Taban. Now, a very interesting topic. The presidency is requesting for an increase in its budget by 38%. The presidency requires that their budget be increased by 38%, and that is the budget for the financial year 2025-2026. Now, we all know that the country right now is in the process of budget making. The Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning has come up with a draft budget, a proposed budget that it intends the parliament to pass so that the country can actually use it for the financial year 2025-2026. And just like I've mentioned in my previous video, that the budget is about 7 trillion South Sudanese pounds. And the budget is 8 trillion South Sudanese pounds, about 8 trillion South Sudanese pounds. And then the revenues that the ministry intends to raise to finance that budget, it's about 7 trillion. So the budget is a deficit budget by about 1 trillion and something South Sudanese pound. And interestingly, the Ministry of the Presidential Affairs is now saying that their budget needs to be increased. Previously, in the previous financial year, 2024-2025, the presidency received a budget of about 23 billion South Sudanese pounds. But this year, they've written a request to the ministry suggesting that their budget should be increased by 38%, which amounts to about 32 billion South Sudanese pounds. Now, a very interesting one. Now, if we see that increment, 38% increment from 23 to 32 billion, and one thing you should also know is that in the previous financial year 2024-2025, the presidency was allocated 23 billion South Sudanese pounds. But the actual money that they spent in that year was about 1.3 trillion South Sudanese pounds. So you can see that difference. A budget allocated to the presidency, the actual budget allocated was 23 billion, but the actual amount, the overturn, the amount of money that were used is about 1 point something trillion. A very huge difference. And this time around, they're saying they need their budget to be increased. And mainly the budget that goes to the presidency, when I'm talking about presidency, I'm not only talking about the office of the President of the Republic of South Sudan. I'm talking about the presidency in whole. I'm talking about the office of the President, the office of the first Vice President, the office of the other 4 Vice President, the economic cluster, service cluster, infrastructure cluster, and all this. So this is the presidency that I'm talking about, that the whole presidency, which is under the Ministry of Presidential Affairs, has written to the Finance Ministry requesting for the budget to be increased. So when the budget is increased, it's not only for the President of the Republic of South Sudan, but also for all other Vice Presidents. And that it's a complete budget that they wanted to be increased by 38%. Now, the presidency in total has positions of about 2,300. Over 2,300 positions in the presidency alone. The president, the vice presidents, all the positions, the approved positions that are operating in the presidency entirely are 2,300 and something. Imagine that huge number. And all these needs to be paid their salary, they need to be serviced, some of them have to be bought some cars and need to be fuel, and all these individuals need to have some, it's a very huge department, and that it takes lots of resources. Over 2,300 positions in the presidency alone. That's a very interesting figure. And, the allocation of this budget, when we compare the money that goes alone to the presidency which in case they approve, let's say that the Ministry of Finance approve the budget increment of the presidency from the previous year 23 billion to 32 billion. That amount of money will be closely equal to the amount of money that is allocated to Warab State, which is the state with the highest amount of money in this financial year. So Warab State this year has been allocated a budget of about 38 billion South Sudanese pound. That is the entire state. That money is going to go to the state, 38 billion South Sudanese pounds. And now the ministry alone in South Sudan is going to be given 32 billion if it is, if the ministry has approved that. So you can see the comparison that an entire money that could have gone to a state, it's all used for the presidency alone. That is a very, very, very huge amount of money. Now that brings me to one important point. I've always blamed that the makers of the peace agreement, the mediators of the peace agreement, failed the South Sudan. Because one, I felt like creating the presidency in that structure was not sustainable for a country such as South Sudan. I mean, these mediators knows very well that this is a country that is going to grapple economically. A country that is going to grapple economically. They went ahead and created all these positions, the president, the first vice president, and all the other 4 presidents. And they knew very well that these positions need other officials that need to operate in this position. All this needs to be financed. So in a country that is grappling like South Sudan, these mediators went ahead and created all these positions, creating a burden on the state. So I feel this is one of the biggest blunders that the peace agreement has actually given South Sudan. That it has created huge positions that even the budget or the country's revenue cannot sustain. Now imagine that money all going to presidency. And each vice president office is allocated about 2 billion. 2 billion each vice president office, the executive. So you can see the effects, you can see the negative effects that are being brought about by the revitalized peace agreement. The number of positions, the kind of burden, the unsustainability that is being created. And I feel this is one of the greatest things that we have to blame on the peace agreement. I mean, the people may appreciate it, that it has created some kind of sensible peace, but also it has come with a huge effect, creating positions that are unsustainable. So thank you guys. This is my take on the request by the Minister of Presidential Affairs for the budget of the presidency to be increased. Write down in the comment section what do you think about this. And until next time, I'm Emmanuel Taban, and this is the Concern Podcast. On our business section for today, are you a South Sudanese parent living in Uganda who desires to preserve your child's national identity, cultural values, and academic continuity without sending them back to South Sudan? Then worry no more. Excel International School proudly offers South Sudanese families in Uganda the opportunity to access the South Sudan national curriculum in a secure, nurturing, and academically enriching environment right in Uganda. As you pursue stability and opportunity in Uganda, your children can continue their education seamlessly following the South Sudan syllabus, guided by qualified, experienced teachers who understand both the academic standards and cultural foundations of South Sudan. At Excel, they deliver genuine South Sudan curriculum, strong moral and academic foundation, experienced and culturally grounded educators, safe and supporting learning environment, and convenient campuses both in Kampala and Arua. For the Kampala campus, they are located at Zambia opposite the American Embassy, or you can contact the principal at 077-168-2831 or 074-2288-712. And the Arua campus is located at Adalafu in Arua City, or you can contact the management at 077-3498-768. Admission for the 2026 and registration for the 2026 academic year is ongoing. Parents are encouraged to register early as places are limited. Give your children an education that connects them to home, heritage, and hope without borders. Excel International School. Fear God to excel.